Welcome to the Daily Views on September 20th in 2021. Today we start in Moscow in Russia. In Russia, the third and last day of the parliamentary elections began on Sunday, so yesterday. In the largest country in the world with a total of 11 time zones, the polling stations in the Baltic Sea region of Kaliningrad, formerly the northern eastern Prussia and was called Königsberg, were the last to open at 8 a.m. CET. 14 parties stand for election. 450 members of the new State Duma as well as numerous regional and city parliaments are elected. The election is an important test of sentiment for Russian President Vladimir Putin. The Kremlin United Russia party is his power base. They want to defend their absolute majority. The last polling stations closed in Kaliningrad at 8 p.m. CET. After that, the first results are expected to be published, but I'm filming before that, so I can't tell you anything about this now. For example, from the online voting, which was organized for the first time on a large scale and was criticized. The election has been overshadowed by allegations of manipulation since it began on Friday. Independent observers from the Golos organization have listed thousands of violations across the country, mostly with photo and video recordings. In many cases, ballot boxes were crammed full of pre-filled voting slips. The Central Election Commission announced that it would examine the allegations. The communists too, who, in view of the widespread dissatisfaction with the policies of the Kremlin, are hoping for an increase in votes and complained of violations in many cases. They announced protests. The voter turnout was stated to be more than 30% after the first 2 days. In the Russian Republic of Chechnya, according to official figures, it was over 70%. The opposition around the imprisoned Kremlin opponent Alexei Navalny, who was excluded from the election, called for a protest vote against United Russia. Today is an important day, said a spokeswoman Kira Yarmysh on Sunday. United Russia wants to steal these elections from us and then rob us for another 5 years, she said. Therefore, the Russians should vote for candidates from other parties. To the annoyance of the Kremlin opponents, the internet giants Google, YouTube, Apple, and the news channel Telegram had deleted the Navalny's team's recommendations for smart voting. That's what they called it. The content banned by the Russian authorities was available on Twitter, though. And now let's go to to Paris in wonderful France. France is calling its ambassadors from the USA and Australia back for consultations because of the dispute over a broken submarine deal. Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian announced on Friday evening in Paris that this extraordinary step was taking place at the request of President Emmanuel Macron. The decision to abandon the purchase of French submarines sealed in 2016 in favor of a partnership with the US and Great Britain represents unacceptable behavior between allies and partners. The consequences have touched the core of France's alliances and partnerships, as well as the importance of the Indo-Pacific for Europe. Australia announced on Thursday that it would acquire nuclear-powered submarines as part of a new security alliance with the United States and Great Britain. France had already reacted very angrily and spoke of destroyed trust with Australia. Australia's decision to build nuclear-powered submarines with American and British support instead of conventional submarines with French help means the loss of a €56 billion agreement for France, not to mention the loss of trust here. US President Joe Biden, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison, and British Prime Minister Boris Johnson had previously announced a new alliance which, according to security experts, is clearly directed against the military threat posed by China in the Indo-Pacific. This also includes building the submarines. Biden spoke of rapidly evolving threats, and in the next 18 months a way should be found for Australia to get such modern submarines, but obviously Bojo has told the Australians some of his deal-keeping stuff. But let's go to Munich in Germany. BMW rejects Deutsche Umwelthilfe's demand that from 2030 no more cars with gasoline or diesel engines will be sold anywhere in the world. The association had demanded a cease and desist from BMW by Monday at the latest and threatened to file a lawsuit. The Munich-based car manufacturer now writes in its reply letter that the democratically legitimized parliaments decided on the way to achieve the climate goals. The legislature weighs up all the social concerns concerned. A legal dispute between two private parties cannot replace this democratic process. Well, BMW is right in that one. Therefore, BMW rejects the alleged injunction claim of the Deutsche Umwelthilfe, it says in the letter, which is available to the German press agency. As a contribution to limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees, BMW wants to reduce the CO2 emissions of its cars by 40% from raw materials through production to the end of use by 2030. The Deutsche Umwelthilfe and Greenpeace had sent Mercedes-Benz and Volkswagen Group the same injunctive relief. The energy group Wintershall Dea is to undertake to DOH not to develop any more oil or gas fields from 2026. It's totally crazy what they demand there. But let's go to Tel Aviv in Israel. 2 weeks after escaping from an Israeli maximum security prison, the last two of a total of 6 militant Palestinians were caught again. The two men were arrested by Israeli special forces during a raid in the Palestinian city of Jenin in the northern West Bank, the army and police said on Sunday. According to the army, 2 accomplices were caught during the operation. When the troops withdrew from the city, there were confrontations with demonstrators. The unit was they threw stones and explosives at the unit, and there also were shots. A week ago, the first 4 of the 6 prisoners who had fled were caught in northern Israel. They escaped from Gilboa prison through a tunnel. According to media reports, they were behind bars for fatal attacks on Israelis. Palestinian militant organizations hailed the flight as a humiliation for Israel. One of the 4 captured is the former Palestinian leader Zakaria Zubeidi, who was hunted by Israel's security apparatus at the time of the second Palestinian uprising, the so-called Intifada. And now let's go to Beijing in China. At least 8 people were killed in a ship accident in the southwest Chinese province of Guizhou. As the state television broadcaster CGTN reported on Sunday, a ship capsized on the Zhanghe River on Saturday evening. A total of 31 passengers were rescued by rescue workers. Another 7 are still missing. And now let's go to Berlin in Germany. Because of the corona pandemic, a significant increase in postal voters is to be expected in the federal election. This is the result of a survey by the newspaper Welt am Sonntag in various large cities. According to this, Frankfurt has sent 160,500 postal voting documents so far, almost twice as many as in the 2017 election in the same period. Bremen also recorded a doubling to currently more than 130,000 postal voting slips. Düsseldorf registered around 50% more applications with 170,000. So far, more than 463,000 postal voting documents have been requested in Munich. In the comparable period in 2017, it was a good 285,000. According to the survey, Hamburg has sent almost 500,000 postal voting records to date. A good 850,000 voting cards have already been issued in Berlin. That's 300,000 more than before. And now let's go to Kunduz in Afghanistan. The spokesman for the Taliban at the former northern Afghan army base in Kunduz has asked Germany and other states for support. It could be investments, reconstruction projects, or any kind of humanitarian support for the government or the citizens of Afghanistan, said Matullah Rouhani to the German press agency in Kunduz. This request is addressed to the entire international community, including Germany. The Taliban would very much welcome help. The Taliban captured Kunduz on August 8th. A week later, the militant Islamists also took power in the Afghan capital, Kabul. The last US troops left Afghanistan at the end of August. This ended the international military operation after almost 20 years. The province of Kunduz, with the capital of the same name, was a focus of Germany's military and civilian engagement at this time. I'm mentioning this because I am sitting in Germany, of course. Rouhani criticized that the international community had supported a corrupt government in Afghanistan for the past 20 years, but that it stopped helping when the Taliban came to power. The Taliban brought peace to Afghanistan, they said, and he emphasized, "We are not terrorists." Well, I don't agree with that one. The provincial spokesman did not want to comment on the Taliban's controversial women's policy. Instead, he referred to the Taliban's interim government in Kabul. Rouhani simply said that the Taliban valued all citizens, both women and men. But do you believe that? Well, let's go back to Beijing No, it's not. We're not going to Beijing. We're going to Hong Kong in China. In Hong Kong, the votes for the Electoral Committee in 2021 began on Sunday morning. Around 4,900 selected residents of the financial metropolis vote on candidates who in turn will choose the next head of administration in Hong Kong. Complicated, huh? The democratic freedom of decision for the population remains extremely small. Beijing already overhauled the electoral system of the city in March so that only patriots are admitted as candidates who position themselves unreservedly loyal to the Chinese government. Politicians from the pro-democracy camp, on the other hand, are almost absent. In the summer of 2020, Beijing passed a draconian national security law for Hong Kong, which severely curtails the political rights of the people. Most opposition supporters have since either been arrested, withdrawn from politics, or fled abroad. And now let's go to Weimar in Germany. The homosexual prisoners in the Buchenwald concentration camp are to be commemorated, or were to be commemorated yesterday with a memorial event and wreath-laying ceremony. In addition to Weimar's mayor Peter Kleine, Thuringia's prime minister Bodo Ramelow was also expected there. Before that, they said, "We want to commemorate these men who were imprisoned, tortured and murdered because they loved whom they loved," said the organization Aidshilfe in Weimar beforehand. During the Nazi era, homosexual prisoners in the concentration camps had to wear a pink triangle on their prison clothes. And we all know how being a prisoner there ended most of the time. And if I had some speaking problems on this video, I must apologize, but that's just a matter of my voice is going because I'm helping with a campaign in the federal election at the moment, and you talk and talk and talk, and I can hear that on my voice and my I call it slippery speaking at the moment. So you see, it's not what you are expecting or what are you used to, but unfortunately, it's the way it is at the moment. But it will end in 1 week. I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.